I still have the honor of being the president of this club for 2 more weeks. And like Roger kind of hinted at, we have a phenomenal meeting for next week. So invite your friends. Yay, super excited. I do not think Lou Brown is on the call. Am I correct? He is not. Okay, John, do you want to do the Sergeant at Arms speech or shall I?
You shall.
I shall. Welcome, fellow Toastmasters and guests. I am pretending to be Lou Brown today. I'll slick my hair back. The meeting of online presenters has now begun. Guests, please note that in order to be a member of our club, you must be a current or former active member of Toastmaster International and have completed at least 6 speeches from either the traditional or Pathways program. Or you must have substantive, relevant presentation experience that you demonstrate in a 3 to 5 minute speech during one of our club meetings. All requests for membership are subject to board approval. If you have not already done so, please change your panel to ensure it shows your name and role. If you have one, right-click and select Rename to do so. We have members and oftentimes guests from many countries throughout the world. Thus, as a professional organization, we ask that you please be aware of language or word usage that may be considered offensive or otherwise insensitive due to cultural differences. Please note that we will be recording the meeting. Your video audio contribution may be used by our club for marketing purposes. Also, please mute your microphone when you are not speaking. And I am not sure of today's theme, but I'm sure it's going to be awesome because it's David Carr. Thank you very much. I will now welcome back our president. Oh, wait. Welcome. My name again is Lois Margolin, Distinguished Toastmaster. I'm excited for our meeting today. It is going to be run by our initiating president. What do we call you? The founding president. There you go. Of this club, please welcome, give it up for the one, the only, David F. Carr. Is the F Frank? What's the F?
My dad's name was Frank. He claims the minister screwed up and changed it to Francis just to make it more biblical or something.
At any rate, that first, but then I said, "Oh, I'll go with Frank." Well, please welcome David F. Carr.
All right, thanks, Lois. Well, you just heard what a fabulous meeting we're going to have next week. We're going to try to make this one pretty good too. The theme of the day is seriously funny. And the occasion for the theme is that we have 3 speakers who, as far as I know, just by coincidence, are all working on the engaging humor path and will be giving us a presentation from the engaging humor path. Also, this means that David, even though he's supposed to know these things, forgot that it was a Toastmaster of the Day's responsibility to add the theme in the word of the day. Fortunately, our grammarian has come up with his own word of the day, which you'll be hearing about in a moment. As Toastmaster of the Day, whether online or off, it is the job to keep the meeting running smoothly in a well-organized fashion. I have some people to help me with that, starting with our timer, Elaine Nieberding. Elaine, can you tell us a little bit about the timer role?
Yeah, so as the timer, as I set up my backgrounds, as the timer, I'll be providing timing for our speeches, our table topics respondents, and for our evaluators. I'll also be doing that for our prospective member speaker, who has a 3 to 5 minute speech. And when folks give their reports at the end of the meeting, it'll be 1 minute. So I'll just flash a stop sign when that time comes up. But for the minimum time, I'll be showing green. For the middle time, I'll be showing yellow. And the last time is red. For speaker, that is 5 at green, 6 at yellow, 7 at red. For table topics, it's green at 1, yellow at 1:30, and red at 2, etc., etc., etc. Oh, yeah, we also time the evaluators, but we'll mention what those criteria are later. Back to you, David.
All right, thank you, Elaine. Next up is my nemesis for the evening, the ah counter. Sarah, what do you have in store for us?
The differences between an experienced speaker and a beginner is how many ahs, ums, aha, filler words that they will be using. My job today is to count those ahs and report at the end. That will be really helpful if we all pay attention, try to use as little filler words as possible when we speak. Back to you, David.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Sometime I'll have to share with the group an article that talks about the science that says ahs and uhs are not really that big of a deal. The Toastmasters makes too big of a deal out of them. But I might be a little bit defensive on that front. Our grammarian tonight is Andre. Andre, can you tell us a little bit about what you'll be doing and maybe share with us our word of the day?
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests. As grammarian, it's my responsibility to pay close attention to all speakers, listening carefully to their language usage. I will take note of any inappropriate language as well as any outstanding words, quotes, sayings, and thoughts. As grammarian, it is also my duty to introduce the word of the day, which goes nicely and smoothly with our theme. And the word of the day is euphoria. Euphoria, a feeling of great happiness. An example, in their euphoria, they had become convinced they could defeat them. I will put this euphoria word in the chat, and I will pay particular attention to the youth. All speakers strongly encouraged to use this word, and I'll get back to you at the end of the meeting. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, thank you, Andre. Our watcher tonight will be Sarah Iden. And correct me on that pronunciation, Sarah. Is the last name Iden or Idahen?
Idahen. I sounds like E, E sounds like A. Thank you. As watcher tonight, I'll just be focusing on the visual portion of our meeting, just to see how we're looking online, see how many people are participating and being active in the discussions or whatever. And I'll try to provide some constructive feedback as to how we can do a better job or just be better in our presentation of how we look on screen. Thank you. Back to you.
All right.
David.
Excellent. We have a chat monitor also, Marianne Grady. Marianne.
Hello, online presenters. My job is the chat monitor tonight, and I will be keeping an eye on the back channel, which is the chat box, and I'll be reporting at the end of the meeting on any popular threads, funny comments, or any noteworthy things going on in that chat box. So I'll see you later. Back to you.
Terrific. We do also have a vote counter, and I'm sorry I didn't spot you in the crowd earlier, Anna, but Anna, is it Avila?
Yes. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. Tonight, I am your vote counter, and I have the honor of collecting all of the votes of the speakers tonight, those participating in table topics, as well as those who are evaluating the 3 speakers. So when it's time for us to collect those votes, please make sure to send them directly to me and not announce to everybody in the group what your votes actually are. Throughout the meeting, there's going to be a signal for you to send me those votes at the end of each segment: best speaker, table topics, and best evaluator. In addition, I'd like to also mention that it'd be really great if you could take time to at least jot down some feedback that you could provide to each speaker so that they can take something away from what they're delivering to us tonight. Mr. Toastmaster, back to you.
Terrific. And to send a private message with the Zoom chat, there's a little drop-down list, and you'll actually see that the words vote counter have been added to the front of Anna's name, just to make her a little bit easier to find. So you send her a private message rather than sending it to everyone. Okay, good enough. Well, as I mentioned, we actually have 3 different speeches, all from the engaging humor path, which is actually wasn't one of the original pathways paths, but they added it on. They did something to improve and expand the experience, and we have 3 different speakers who are all taking advantage of that. Speaker number 1 this evening, Emily Thompson, is actually pretty far along in that process. She's in engaging humor, level 5. This is the Demonstrating Experience Lessons Learned project. And the title of her speech is Taking Our Bricks and Mortar Club Online. Now, Emily's a member of Online Presenters and also Washtenaw Toastmasters, her local club. She can correct me on that as she goes through. She's a professor at a community college. She joined Online Presenters in January this year, partly because she believes the future of education is online. And when the pandemic shut down the club meeting space and the residents of her state were ordered to be sequestered at home, Emily and other officers of her Toastmasters club took the club online. Emily claims the most important thing she learned for her lessons learned meeting was to advertise the meeting will last 15 minutes and that there will be a party afterwards. Emily, you're on.
Thank you, David. It's absolutely true. Last week at Washtenaw Toastmasters, almost 100% of the members stayed after to take part in our lessons learned meeting because advertised directly after was our 3rd week social hour, which actually lasts for 2 hours, and everyone is up for a party at this time in the pandemic. According to Jody Picoult, some lessons can't be taught. They just have to be learned. I'm going to tell you today about the Lessons Learned project. I'll tell you about what we learned, and I also want to tell you about co-benefits of Zoom. You know about the benefits of Zoom. These are the other benefits. For those of you who don't know about Lessons Learned, this is a project that requires you to do 3 things. First, you have to lead a project in a group. Second, you have to do an evaluation project that's called the Lessons Learned meeting, which has a certain structure and in which you learn about the successes and the failures of the project so far. And then finally, you have the scariest part, which is you have to do a 360-degree evaluation, which if you're doing it at work means you have to ask your boss, your colleagues, and your students to evaluate you. And I have finally learned on this, my 4th path, to do it at Toastmasters and ask my pals to evaluate me. Much easier. Despite wishing it were otherwise, it turns out the Lessons Learned project is done at the very end of the entire project. The meeting is done at the end. And as you can imagine, it really would be useful to do that at the beginning and prevent all the heartache in between. But it doesn't work out that way. As David mentioned, our club was an online club at Washtenaw Toastmasters. We had about 28 members, about 20 people showed up every week at our Bricks and Mortars club, and then the pandemic struck. I was already prepared because I had been an online presenter for a few months, and essentially in 1 week, we went from demonstrating Zoom and me buying the Zoom account, and the next week we were up and running. In order to make this happen, I had to offer tutoring help for all the members ages 20 to 75 who needed help, muting and unmuting, you know the drill, and all the other little things that you need to learn to be successful. But I didn't do it alone. I had my fabulous officers. My VPE sat down with me and we modified everything to make our brick and mortar agenda and meeting structure work online and work for us. She wrote a ton of documents and sent them out to members. Couldn't have done it without her. I also had fabulous tech support from a number of people who understood everyone else's computers when they couldn't unmute and they were using a phone or something. I needed lots of support for that, and we had wonderful officers and members helping. Then it came time to do the lessons learned meeting, and I was surprised with two of the successes that the members mentioned. The first was the members were surprised that we were successful. And I was extremely surprised by this because I expected us to be successful. I have been doing online education, online classes, teaching pre-med, genetics, the whole thing for 8 years. I, in fact, am enrolled in an online public health degree right now, and we use Zoom. I was expecting to be successful, but the rest of the membership was not expecting success. Another success that we weren't expecting was a number of members that had become inactive due to poor health or inability to drive suddenly became able to join us on Zoom. And that was such a boon to get them back and to get back all their experience. The improvement that was suggested also turned out to be surprising. So this is a great meeting to hold. One thing that was suggested to improve was to have the table topics master be more imaginative. And by this, the person suggesting this said, well, here you are at home, you have all these props, why not just tell everyone to go get a hat out of the closet and talk about a story involving their hat? And this was met with great acclaim at our club. Another area of improvement that our club wanted was to add back the break that we used to take. It's our real socializing time. And a solution was suggested that, in fact, we use Zoom rooms and randomly assign 5 people to a Zoom room and allow them to converse and then come back to the meeting. And that idea of improvement was met with great acclaim. The things I learned from that 360 evaluations are I seem to be an okay leader. I seem to be flexible, enthusiastic, and helpful. But the 2 people who wrote the evaluations wrote the same thing. They said, I might not have considered all impacts when moving the club online. To respond to that, I've sent out an email to the club membership asking for hidden negative impacts of moving the club online in case maybe someone didn't have the technology. I quickly want to make a plug for those co-benefits of Zoom. Zoom allows us to go online, but the stories that people told in the lessons learned meeting indicated that we all benefited from Zoom. We were able to check up on people who live alone. We were able to see new members and people that have, for example, been ill and out of the club. And it allowed us to make contact with people from out of the country who are in the club who maybe didn't understand or needed more help accessing supplies during the pandemic. So these were great benefits, co-benefits of using Zoom. In summary, the Lessons Learned project is a useful one for running a project and getting useful feedback. Toastmasters is where leaders are made, and the Lessons Learned project is a step on the path. Look into it and see if it's right for you. Mr. Toastmaster.
All right. Thank you, Emily. I may have given you too much buildup there by emphasizing the humorous path, because not every path, not every speech project along the humorous path has to be a rip-roaring humorous speech. However, I think speaker number 2 has something like that in mind for us today. Antoinette Trim is on level 2. She's doing learning your style, connect with your audience. And again, this is from the engaging humor path. Her title is Uniforms. Respect the uniform. She writes, I work in a financial institution and many of us wear our uniforms with pride. Some of my colleagues, it appears, well, they just do not. Here are some of the atrocious deeds my coworkers have done whilst they were clothed in Republic Bank's uniform. Antoinette.
Thank you, Toastmaster of the day, David Carr. Right now, I'm feeling a sense of euphoria because just now we'll be getting our uniforms at Republic Bank. At least that's the state for females, but for males, not so much. Here's where we choose different styles of the uniform. And the designer that we have now is Janua's. After that, we will have a survey, and then the bank will send CDs, and we will each look at the CD on our own PC. And there's where the bank will tell you what and what should not be worn. For example, they'll tell us which colors matching up with which. Another thing, for the females, you must not wear more than 2 earrings per A. Our skirts and dresses must not be shorter or longer than 2 inches below and above the knee. As well as those of us who wear nail polish, especially the females, it should have no neon colors, no black. Even the disposal of the uniforms, they tell us that we have to shred the uniforms before we get rid of it or throw it in a dustbin. For the men, they must be neatly groomed and no brightly colored hair. However, there was an instance some years ago whereby one of my colleagues had his hair he used to wear his hair in a ponytail. And so he was reprimanded for doing such. So therefore, he went to court. And what he said is that while he was coming to work, none of the managers told him that his hair is getting too long. Obviously, when he won the court case and he reported back to work, only to find that he was being victimized. So he soon resigned from Republic. I am so excited about this new uniform, you hear me? That I already placed 3 pairs of shoes in my Amazon cart box. After when they arrive, I will be going about to Scarborough to get my handbags to match. Because no way you can wear this uniform with old shoes from 3 or 4 years ago. This is where your wardrobe is under scrutiny. It is also noted that our uniforms are no cost to the staff members because you're giving enough uniforms to at least last us for 1 week, working week at any one time. But what I do, I will order extra pants or extra skirts because I am very clumsy. So much so that especially when I'm ironing, I would either burn the uniform at some point in time. What happened to me recently is that at work, I was bending down to pick up something and the whole back of my dress burst open, seam burst open. Luckily for me, I had my cardigan right next to me. So I just quickly wrapped around my cardigan around my body. As well as 2 friends, colleagues of mine had a laugh, and we all had a good laugh at the incident. At this point in time, Janua's will be ready to fit us. But you will appreciate that I will not be able to tell you exactly about the design of the uniform because it is top secret. However, there are a few instances whereby 2 of my colleagues defaced the uniform. But could you imagine one of my colleagues decided to do pole dancing at a bar with the uniform on? In this era of cell phones, what was she thinking? That was called for immediate dismissal. Another incident happened right in Tobago, where one of my colleagues was fighting in front of the bank with the uniform on. All hell break loose. Next thing you know, after the fight, the shoe was in the road and all kind of drama, as we call it in Tobago. What eventually happened is that she was suspended for a week, and she had to go to, should I say, anger management for a week. She came back to work, but because, as being Tobago said, because she's so ashamed, she ended up resigning. So that was about two instances where in my work co-workers, we could say, defaced the uniform. Another incident, by the way, was one of my female co-workers. They decided to do alterations to, but she decided to do alterations to her body, forgetting that the uniform couldn't fit. So she decided now to come to work, and the uniform were extremely tight. So management told her, staff member, you cannot wear these uniforms. You have to get a new set of uniforms. Of course, by your own, out of your pockets, not the bank's pockets. And so, as with normal behavior, some of us like the uniform and some don't, especially the new uniforms. But as everything else, the majority carries, because as I said before, we usually have a survey. I am now looking with eager anticipation to my new uniform. And I'm looking forward with bated breath to see how I would look in my new uniform. Back to you, David.
All right. Thank you, Antoinette. Our third speaker of the evening, also working from the engaging humor path on level 3, engage your audience. Birgit Starmans has a speech for us tonight on my journey to buy a bathing suit. She says that part of her goal for this path is to use storytelling and humor to approach a topic that does not normally lend itself to humor. Birgit, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. It's February, and it's time to go bathing suit shopping. Why February? Because they're not all sold out yet by the time you get to summer. So here I was, 6 weeks out of the hospital, feeling very proud of myself that I was ready to go to a store and actually shop for a new bathing suit. I hadn't done that in years. And there's this one store that just drew me in as if it were a magnet. Tommy Bahamas. They do have the greatest clothes. And I started browsing, and as usual, the more I browsed, the more bathing suits I found. So here I am with a complete armful, and I'm ready to finally hit the dressing room. And I had all different kinds, and I thought, well, let me try one style at a time. The first thing I started out with was a bikini. I'd always worn a bikini growing up. There's even a nice little photo of myself as a 5-year-old with a homemade bikini top that my mother had made for me. I was just very used to having them because you get more tan all over your body. So I put on the first bikini, and it was a very, very classy kind of black bikini, and it kind of went right across my chest in a very straight line. And then I turned around and looked at the mirror. And underneath my left arm was not a scar, not a hole. I'll just call it an indentation. There's this little thing that went a little bit too far under my left arm. Well, this was the remnants of a double mastectomy. And I keep forgetting that there are scars associated with it. And while showing it a little bit is fine, I don't really want that to be the first topic of conversation when people come across me in a swimming pool or in the beach. So thinking, all right, well, to cover that up a little bit more, I'm still going with the bikini. I'm committed to having that bikini. And then I had found a really pretty turquoise one, and it had a halter top which went around my neck. So it was more triangular, and it covered that indentation, not 100%, but it covered it a lot more than the other style that I had tried on. So that made me actually really happy. And I was thinking that I wouldn't even have to try on anything else. And then I checked underneath the bikini, and oops, I just got out of the hospital. I had forgotten that there were scars from the chest tubes that were still there underneath my bikini top. All right, so I guess the bikini's not going to work this year. It should work next year. All right, so I take it off. I still had a lot of different other bikinis to try on. But I thought, okay, well, seeing that, let me move on to the one pieces. So I tried on a one piece. It was actually gorgeous, dark blue with bright green accents. I loved it. And then I remembered growing up in Virginia that it was very hot and very humid. And even though I'm in California right now, we still have that issue of it being very hot. So I'm thinking, well, maybe the one piece is not really that great of an idea. I mean, it looks great and it covers all my scars, but nah. And then I realized, well, it doesn't cover the one that's coming right down my chest from the open heart surgery. Oops. So I was thinking, okay, well, there's this great new invention. I know there are a lot of men here tonight, but it's called a tankini. The top of it is pretty much like a tank top, and the bottom of it is like a bikini bottom. So the nice thing is they're separate. So if you're lying out in the sun, you can actually roll it up and it works just fine. But it also covered up those scars that were right underneath. Okay, one less thing to worry about. But that scar here in the middle, well, they don't really make bikinis that are turtlenecks. And if they did, I would not want to wear one anyway. Turtlenecks drive me nuts. I'm always kind of grabbing at them and trying to loosen them up. And I'm thinking, you know, I just have to live with it. I mean, it is what it is, right? So I figured I'd found a style being a halter top, and I found a style that was kind of half bikini, half one piece. It covered the majority of my scars. So I'm thinking I'm in actually pretty good shape. And guess what? I had 4 of these tankinis in the dressing room with me. So I started trying them on, and 2 of them were actually reversible. So I landed on the one that was kind of orange and pink on one side, and then kind of white with flowers on the other side. And I thought, yeah, this is really, really gorgeous. All right, then I looked at the price tag, because of course they priced the top separately from the bottom. And I'm starting to do this little calculation thinking, if I were to divide the cost by the square inch, this would be extremely expensive. And then I'm thinking, it's February, I'm not going out to the beach, I should wait for the sales. Well, if I wait for the sales, then the styles I like aren't really going to be available anymore. Now that it's getting warm, they don't really have a lot of stock left in the stores of any kind of a bathing suit. And then I remembered that I had chosen the reversible one. So the nice thing about the reversible one, I figured I was getting 2 for 1. So it made that whole money issue kind of go away a little bit, because I was essentially getting, if you think about it, 4 for the price of 1. If I turned around the top but not the bottom, if I turned around the bottom, not the top, I had 4 different combinations of bathing suits that I could actually sport. So I went ahead and bought them. And when it comes to scars, yes, it is what it is. I'm not going to be wearing a turtleneck for the rest of my life, and the scars are going to start getting lighter. And there's this great quote in a TV show called Criminal Minds by David Rossi. And he said, scars remind us where we've been. They don't dictate where we're going. Mr. Toastmaster.
All right. Thank you, Birgit. I think I said it right. All right, try and behave myself. Timer, may we have a timer's report, please? You just tell us if anybody was disqualified, and otherwise just post the times.
Everyone qualified.
All right, so that means folks who are voting tonight, and that's anybody who wants to vote, is encouraged to send a vote for Emily, Antoinette, or Birgit to our vote counter. And I think we're right on time. Our table topics master should be able to do 4 table topics and still leave us with rooms for our prospective member speech we need to squeeze in. Brian David Crawford will be leading us in our impromptu speaking exercise tonight. Brian.
Thank you very much, David. My name is Brian David Crawford. Most people call me BDC. I believe a great table topic question is going to be one that you know the answer to, but you got to think about how you're going to talk about this for 1 to 2 minutes. As such, I've lined up 7 people, and I've got some very moral questions that will test their scruples. My first speaker today is going to be Jim. Jim, are you ready, buddy?
I am ready, sir.
Someone has stolen your bicycle. At the police station, you're shown a similar bicycle, but it's not yours. Do you claim it?
Wow, Mr. Topics Master, I am positively euphoric that you asked me that question. I have a little bit of a problem in that you said this was going to deal with scruples, and I don't have any scruples, nor do I have a bicycle. So I'm going to use my imagination on both of those and assume that I did have a bicycle and that I do have scruples. If I had a bicycle and I had scruples and it was stolen, the bicycle, not my scruples, if the bicycle was stolen and I went to the police station and I saw another bicycle that was very similar to my bicycle, would I claim it as the bicycle that I lost? That would depend on some other factors, because you see, the bicycle that I lost had a carrying case on it that had $10,000 in cash. So if the bicycle at the police station had anything close to $10,000 in cash in a case or any sort of carrying compartment, then that most definitely would be my bicycle. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You could look at the cash and determine that. I can identify that there are pictures of presidents on those bills in the cash drawer. So it's obviously mine. That, of course, depends, as I say, upon whether the bicycle matches that particular thing. If it's an ordinary bicycle without any particular cash, no, I'm going to stand by my scruples and wait for a bicycle that resembles the bicycle that I might have lost, the one with all the cash on it, for that to show up at the police station. I am a man of scruples, Mr. Topics Master.
Thank you very much, Jim. We're going to move next down the line to Hetzi. Hetzi, are you ready for the question?
Yes, I am, and now I have to follow Jim. What a task.
The government has given you a large tax refund by mistake. Do you let them know?
Oh boy, taxes. We all have to pay them. And we all do benefit from them, I guess most of the time. Ooh, Mr. Topics Master, would I return? I'm kind of with Jim about the scruples. Not always sure where they are, and sometimes I have to search for them. And I think if I would consider keeping the money, I'm not a US citizen, and I'm actually leaving the country to go back home soon. So they have to come a long way to look for me. So that might make me think twice about that. I'm from South Africa originally, and there is a lot of people that can use some US dollars over there at the moment, specifically. So if I do keep it, I would use it to empower people that are in need and that can benefit from it. You know, kind of make myself feel like Robin Hood, I guess. But to be honest, I do have some scruples, and I probably would let them know, because you never know when it comes back to kind of bite you in the you-know-where, Mr. Topics Master.
Thank you very much. Our next person in the queue is John. John, are you ready for a question of scruples?
Yes.
John, you've been looking for a small cassette player. A street vendor is selling them for $20. Do you buy one?
Mr. Topics Master, a small cassette player for $20. I would just be offended by the price of $20 for a small cassette player these days. Back in my day, a cassette player was a nickel. And now you're going to charge me $20? Is it vintage retro chic now to have a cassette player? And now they must be hundreds of thousands of dollars each? What is it going to cost to get my Fresh Prince cassette? And what's it going to cost to get my Aerosmith cassette? If I pay $20 for the cassette player, this isn't a question of scruples. This is just a question of general economics and consumer sentiment. And I will give that cassette seller a piece of my mind. And I'll say, if you're going to come out here and bootleg cassettes, at least do it at an affordable price that everyone can appreciate. Mr. Topics Master.
Thank you very much, John. Our next person is going to be a guest. Rosena, are you ready for the question?
Yes, I'm ready.
You attend your best friend's wedding reception at an exclusive club. Terrible food, poor service, and bad music. The bride comes up to you afterwards and asks if she got her money's worth. Are you honest?
Wow, what a question, Mr. Topics Master. This is my best friend we're talking about here, and we are nothing but honest with each other. As a matter of fact, we are so honest with each other. That question did not even need to leave her mouth. She can see the look on my face with how much I love food and wonder why there's a plate filled right in front of me. She knows I love to dance, and the entire time I sat at my table by myself, reading my Kindle in my phone, the entire reception. She knows me so well that the fact that I was still dry with no sweat, starving with no food, and did not pick up a date at her wedding, there must have been something wrong. So the question of whether or not she got her money's worth would not be an answer I would give, but an answer that she would see. Thank you, Mr. Topic Master.
Thank you very much. I think I got time for one more person because it is only 8:28. So I'm going to call my last person, Carl. Carl, are you ready?
I am
Carl,
ready.
not ready. All right, excellent, cool. All right. You are waiting at a red light at 4 a.m. There's absolutely no other cars around. You just drive through the light.
This actually happened to me once. I was in Santa Monica early in the morning, late night, call it what you will, and stopped at a stoplight. I was, in fact, the only one around on a very large boulevard, many lanes. In my rearview mirror, I could see someone coming up behind me. They didn't stop. They kept coming up behind me until they rammed me into the middle of the intersection. I've always thought about that. Every time I was a solitary person at an intersection, do I really want to stay here as a target? A couple years ago, I came off the freeway on an off-ramp right next to my house. I stopped at the red light. I was the only person there, and somebody came off the freeway and decided to drive through me into the intersection. So my feelings on this topic are, if you're the only one there, you're the target. So move, get out of the way, make sure nobody sees you, lines you up, and runs through you into the intersection. Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you very much, Carl. I want to apologize for the other people who I asked if they would participate and said, yes, we're not going to have time to get to you because I need to turn it back over to our Toastmaster of the day, David. Back to you.
Okay. Thank you, BDC. May we have a timers report, please?
Yes, all of our respondents did perform their responses within the allowed time.
All right.
So
Already
please
posted.
consult the chat for the names and send your votes to the vote counter, please.
All right. Well, that would make it the time to introduce you, Elaine, because Elaine, as our VP of membership, is going to introduce a prospective member to our club.
So at this time, I would like to welcome and invite you to get to know Tayana Melo. As it turns out, there are two people here tonight that have linkages to Brazil. Tayana is one of them. She doesn't live there now. I'm not sure what she's going to include in her story, but please help us welcome Tayana Melo as she helps introduce herself to online presenters.
Thank you, Elaine. Thank you, everyone. Wow, that's great to be here, and good evening. I'm not really, I don't know if I'm totally prepared to introduce myself. That's introducing myself. It's something that I have some challenge with, but I just would like to thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself, and even for you, Elaine, for all your support during these last weeks. Thank you so much. And I've got to tell that the first time that I've been introduced to this group, I got really impressed by you, really impressed by you. And my name is Tayana. I'm also Brazilian. As Carlos, I was born in Rio. And 3 years ago, I moved to Burlington. It's a small city close to Toronto in Canada. And I came to complete my MBA here. And I believe you're gonna ask, like, what does she do now? I believe that we can have either a job, a career, or a call. And I would say that we just skip from one to another when we have a good reason. And I had jobs in Brazil before I joined the IT world. In the IT world, I was working as a sales executive in companies like LinkedIn, Salesforce, and Oracle. And now I decided to follow my call and helping other people to achieve big things. And this is why I'm here, because I'm a mindset coach now here in Canada, and I use neuroscience and quantum science to help my clients succeed. And I know it sounds a little bit nerdy, but actually it's very interesting, because it's like helping kids to drive a Ferrari. I believe that each one of us, when we are born, we receive such amazing gifts, like our mind, our body, but most of us, we spend the whole life without knowing how to drive them. And this is what I'm doing now. I'm helping them to drive their Ferraris. I train companies as well, and I'm here because first of all, I need to feel more comfortable about presenting in English, as Portuguese is my first language. And I also want to learn how to use storytelling and voice intonation to get more engaging presentations. So it was really nice to know about this group. And it's also nice that it makes me feel intimidated, because I feel that every time that we feel ourselves challenged, this is when we are going the right direction. Thank you so much for having me here. And I would also like to share maybe some reason why I started to follow my call. When I was 12, I had a very serious car accident, and like Birgit, I have so many scars, more than 20 surgeries in 1.5 years. And before one of the surgeries, I met an old lady, and she was by herself in the hospital. And she said something to me that completely changed my life. And she told me, hey, little girl, don't spend your life and end up like me here in the hospital by yourself. Just help people, have fun, because it doesn't take too long before you get to my age. And this is basically why I decided to follow my call. And I'm looking forward to have you helping me and supporting me, and also bring some value to the group, hopefully. I do believe that if we can really just get our life going, and if we can touch others, if we can help others, and otherwise we are out of touch with our own lives. Thank you so much.
I think we indeed got to know you, Tayana. Thank you so much.
All right, excellent. Well, let's move along with our meeting. We've come to what is often termed the most important part of a Toastmasters meeting, the part where we get immediate feedback. There may be euphoria, hopefully no tears. And leading us through that portion of the meeting will be our general evaluator, Michael Alexander.
I was going to applaud, and then I realized it was me. That would seem a little egotistical, which is frankly my trademark, but I'm going to try to avoid it tonight. This was a wonderful meeting, and we all deserve a great feeling about what we've done, but it's my job as general evaluator to quell that sense of euphoria that many of you are feeling. A little tough tonight. First of all, I'd like to seriously compliment Elaine on doing a wonderful moderating job as she introduced everybody. She did a great job. She was pleasant to listen to, smooth and whatever. She handled the whole questioning process well. And when I ran a little bit longer than I should have, the way she cut me off, smooth and polite, and thank you very much and congratulations on it. I, of course, only ran along as a test. Our president, nice presentation, nice lead-in and whatever. I'm very pleased with the whole thing. I thought the word of the day was charming. Seriously funny is a great contradiction to work with as a theme. I like that a lot. I really did. I'm a little concerned because our grammarian, who we'll come to with later, is English. And of course, my native language isn't English, it's American. But the table topics master, I liked your questions. And I liked exactly as you said, we knew what the answer should be. And everybody gave you a hard time in responding. That was great, people. With that, I'm going to go one by one to the evaluators. And the first evaluation is Carol, and I'm bad with names, guys, Prahinski, who will be evaluating Emily Thompson's speech. Carol?
Dr. Michael Alexander. It is Dr. Carol Prahinski. All right, just sharing. All right, now let's go on to the heart. It's nice to hang out with you. Let's go on to the heart of our speakers tonight. I want to thank our speaker, Emily Thompson, for your wonderful speech. Why was it wonderful? Because there was a couple things you did extremely well. One was you had a smile that was visible to us almost the whole time. That was great. Another thing you did extremely well was organize your speech to the structure or the longitudinal layout. So it followed from beginning to the end. All right, very nice structure. You had great vocal variety. You had pauses, you had inflection, you had some great engagement with us. And you made me laugh, which I was not expecting in this speech because I know the focus was on what you learned, lessons learned, but you actually had me laughing. So some fantastic components to your speech. Now, a couple areas to work on. I would like you to eliminate the verbal agenda. I'm going to talk about this and then I'm going to talk about that. We don't want it. Just jump right in, share your story. A second thing is I felt the need for some sort of green screen. When you used your hand gestures like I'm using now, we saw lots of things behind you. It actually became visible to us. And you may also see that with me. I don't have a green screen at this time, but just be aware that there'll be one more thing to make it one more step towards professionalism. And the third thing is to plan your hand gestures. You had a lot of them, And they were good. They emphasized your points. I want you to go a little bit farther though and decide what exactly are you going to speak on and how am I going to coordinate it with my hand gestures. I heard a few filler words, and our grammarian or filler or counter will tell us more, but one was particularly different. And so I'm going to go ahead and share that with you. I heard, as you can imagine, more than once, that phrase, as you can imagine. So my suggestion is just be aware of it. And just because you're aware of it, it will be gone. I want to congratulate you on your speech and your progress in this path. Almost done, or is this the final thing? I'm so excited for you. And to be able to evaluate someone who's gotten this far in the level, I'm impressed and appreciate the lessons learned. I think all of us in the audience could relate to that internet transition and the feedback you received as a leader. Thank you so much. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Wonderful job. I apologize for getting the wrong title. I didn't give you a title, I don't think. Okay, then I don't apologize at all. A second evaluator, Tricia Smith, will be evaluating Antoinette Trim's speech. Tricia?
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. I'm going to honor Antoinette Trim. I just love watching her. She has a smile that just takes up the whole screen. I think she did a great job getting everybody's attention. She was in the center of the screen. She did use some gestures. I really enjoyed her storytelling. She talked about the uniforms. We got information about the uniforms were for a banking setting. I think she gave us like some colors and different shoes and different scenarios, and she gave some great examples that went along with humor of her own experience wearing a dress. She even talked about details of earrings and accessories and things like that. So kudos on all of those great examples. She's great eye contact. It was very easy to pay attention to her. She had everybody's attention and awareness. She did use some hand gestures, like I said. I would say what I noticed, I love her background, and it was distracting because it was so awesome. Her ocean, it was a wonderful background. So my recommendation is, even though that's a beautiful background, I would say relate it to the topic maybe. Because to me, it was like I was paying attention to everything you said, and those waves in the background, it was like, oh, I'd love to be there. So that was something I was thinking about as I was listening. The other thing is I wanted to share, with my work, we talk a lot about the why. So you talked about how some of the employees reacted differently to having to wear uniforms. Well, we all know what uniforms are, right? And from my knowledge of having to wear uniforms at work, it's to provide consistency and professionalism and things like that. So to me, knowing that why, like, was that why identified to the employees? Is that why they were kind of challenging whether they had to wear them or how they were going to wear them, and kind of made a joke, you know, if they went there and they were too big for the uniform to get reactions, or maybe it was so new that it was a new experience for everybody. So anyway, knowing the why kind of helps people to buy into, okay, it's accepted, I'm going to do it. And wow, if you wore the uniform so we could see what it looked like, that would have been another good visual. Just saying. Otherwise, great job. I just loved listening to you. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you very much, Tricia. And the final evaluation of speech will be Jim Gould evaluating Birgit's speech. Jim.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and especially Birgit. It was very interesting for your journey to buy a bathing suit. And it's something that I've not had to deal with in my, I mean, certainly not a bikini. So it's February, and I really enjoyed the story that you're only 6 weeks out of the hospital, and you're you're going to Tommy Bahamas, and you're euphoric about this whole situation. So the whole story just built right up. And then it kind of got into something really kind of personal. And that was interesting to hear that you tried on this bikini and there was an indentation, and there was some, what some might consider imperfections, but you know, it was really cool to listen to you go through this. So you really did a great job of coming up and putting all of this information out in front of us. You have such a really good presence in front of the camera. It's great to see, because you have good eye contact. You're looking at the camera and not down at notes or over someplace else. So it was really, really good to see that. I'm sorry to see that you can't get a bikini. That's just too bad, because you know, what are you gonna do if you can't get a bikini? I really liked how you talked about the turtleneck bikini, and how that could all happen for you too. But all in all, you know, I'm just so happy that you finally found something. And you know, the new thing, you said the tankini. Well, how about the trikini? Because that's the one with the face mask and the top and the bottom. So those are the things to look forward to. Don't worry about your scars. Scars remind us of where we've been, not where we're going. Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you very much. I really liked the way you managed to put her picture into the background there, since I can't keep track of everybody at once, and it meant that I could see her reaction. I thought that was a wonderful addition and a good use of the technology. Pretty soon we're going to all get involved in the gimmickry here, of course, and that'll be a disaster. But until then, that's great. I want to warn you people now that I am not going to show you me in a bikini. And my lack of scars in no way influences how much you want to see me in a bikini, let me assure you. I would like to move on now and ask to hear from the two monitors. We're going to start off with our watcher. Would you please tell us what you saw?
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Oh, I thought I heard an echo. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. And I thought we had a very good meeting, and judging from the body language, the smiles, it seems like everybody was into the meeting. They were listening, they were engaged, and I really like when there was something funny. I saw a lot of smiles, and there were a lot of beautiful smiles and laughter. There was good vision as far as how everybody was presented on their screen. You could see everybody. The volume was good for everybody, and it just seemed like everything went very well. The only thing that I noticed, I thought maybe we could improve on, is that when people were introduced, we didn't have a consistent clap or response, applause. Sometimes we did, sometimes we didn't. And so I just thought maybe if we just take a good look at that and just try to do a little better in that area. I think anybody watching the video will feel like everybody had a good time, and they would have felt welcome, especially by all the smiles, even from the guests. The guests seemed very welcome as well. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you very much. And I can see Marianne is already jumping to get in to give us her chat monitor report, and I'm not going to stand in her way.
Well, the chat was not extremely busy tonight. We started with Jim and Chris Gould having their website up there, and I actually clicked on it. They have a lot of tech training that they offer, and on their website it says teaching old dogs learning new tricks, which I thought was pretty clever. So it was geeksontour.com if anyone wants to go there. Now, after that, we went to the Seriously Funny. Dr. Alexander said during Antoinette's speech that he was talking about how he tries to match his shirt to whatever he's going to spill on himself at lunchtime, which significantly limits him. Roger Fung, pole dances in a school uniform. Not sure about that. Deborah Carr asked the question, can we love Jim Barber anymore? And David Carr offered prayers to the internet gods for Tricia's internet connection. President Lois said, Jim in a bikini? So we had a lot of funny remarks tonight, and that's my report. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster, or General Evaluator, excuse me.
Thank you very much. I thought all the evaluations were good and solid. I will look forward to hearing what the actual vote comes out at. I think the monitoring of how people are presenting themselves as audience is very important, and a lot of clubs still need to learn to do that in the virtual settings because being an audience is important. I am fascinated by the way the chat is handled and does or does not interfere. Thank you, Marianne. I appreciate you caught a lot of the good stuff there. I'm glad to hear it and see it. So I think we're doing very, very well and nicely recapped. Can we hear from our grammarian, please?
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. I'm Ukrainian by birth, and my first language is Ukrainian. However, I found an extraordinary use of American and English language today. The word euphoria has been used on a number of occasions, particularly by Antoinette, who was a speaker number 2. I would like to praise her for that. In prepared speech, using the word of the day, it was an outstanding achievement. Jim Barber as well, table topic speaker number 1. David, Toastmaster of the day. And of course, our general evaluator, Mr. David Michael Alexandra, used the word of the day as well. Moving on to extraordinary use of English or American English. I would like to praise our guest, Rosena, who was a table topic speaker. She used the phrase, her question didn't have to leave her mouth. Very poetical. I personally like it. And of course, Birgit. The scars remind us where we have been. They don't determine where we're going. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you very much. And lastly, I hope it's lastly because I probably missed something, but our R counter, Sarah Gow.
Here I am. The filler words used most tonight is and so. I've sent a private R counter report to individuals who used more than 8. What I would say about filler words, if you have a few in the speech, we all do. When it comes to more than certain quantities, that's when your audience start to notice. I would recommend one best practice demonstrated by our speaker 1, Emily, tonight. She used a lot of breathing in her speech. That's create a very nice pace, and it stops you keep adding filler words in it. So next time when you do a speech, try exercise. If you want to add and also, take a quick breath. That will be a tip for today. Back to you, General Evaluator.
Again, I thank you. Nicely done. You did something or said you were going to do something which I think is wonderful, and I'm very pleased to see and want to commend everyone on, is a certain amount of brevity with respect to making everybody listen to the individual counts. I get tired of listening to a list of, and Bill had 5 and Mary had 16, and sending it in the chat directly, good plan. David, having the timer simply say if everyone was in or out of time, saved us a lot of time in the process. And Elaine, you were Johnny on the spot with getting things out with respect to timing. I was impressed with that too. I hope everyone has taken advantage of the opportunity to send private messages to the individual speakers they want to make comments on. And with that, I'm going to close out my section of the meeting and return control to David Carr, our Toastmaster of the day.
All right. Thank you, Toastmaster Alexander, for a great evaluation portion of the meeting. And now it's time to find out some winners. We'll ask our vote counter, Anna, to go ahead and announce them.
The time of the evening that everyone is filled with euphoria for. Learning who won. Yay! So let's get started. Best speaker goes to, I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm pounding my desk, is Birgit. Yay! I would love to add her video somewhere here, but Jim has to share how to do that. Best table topics goes to our guest, Rosena. Thank you. And finally, best speech evaluator for tonight was Jim Gold. Yay!
Oh, wow.
I cede the floor back to you, David.
All right. All right, Rosena, I think that officially means you have to join. That's like being thrown the bouquet or something.
Yeah.
Let me conclude my duties for this evening. Thanks for a great meeting. And let me give it back to our president, Lois Margolin.
All right, thank you, David. So how fabulous was this? Did everybody have a good time? Yes, thumbs up. Yay! Roger, you want to do the plug one last time for the 29th, and then we'll ask some guests what they thought of the meeting.
Yes, everybody, if you think tonight is a good meeting, well, you haven't seen nothing yet. Hey, where's the grammarian for that? Anyway, you want to show up on time because we are closing out this year with a special meeting. It is a table topic meeting that you have never seen before. Because not only are we going to have some impromptu speaking, we're going to have some impromptu leadership. That means each and every one of you may be asked to lead, to do something, and we won't give you the instruction until 30 seconds prior to what you have to do. So you want to sign in on time. I know a number of you have signed into roles on our website. I will be rearranging those. I will be contacting you. So please come in a little early, warm up, get ready as we close out this Toastmaster year. Back to you, Lois.
Thank you, Roger. I knew if I said something, I would just spoil the whole thing, go, and then we're doing this, and then we're doing that. So I figured we'd have Roger do that. He can calm himself down. So let's ask some of our guests what they thought about today's meeting. Let's see. Asha, what did you think?
Thanks, President. It was a great meeting. It was really nice to be back in the Toastmasters space and to hear the speeches and the order and the clapping. So thank you for a great experience.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed. Let's see. Scott, what did you think?
I really enjoyed it, and it's great. I picked up a few things and thought it was really fun. Some of whoever was throwing in the applause clips and stuff in there was fun and an active chat. So it's good to see it being not just the video engagement, but the whole meeting and some of the creative ideas that came out of that.
Wonderful. Well, we hope you'll be back. And I have time for one more guest, and that would be Jay. What did you think of the meeting?
Thanks, Loy. I think it was a great meeting. Some great speeches, great evaluation. I also learned, how you can take a quick breath and still, you appear more thoughtful while you are just, using it as a filler. So that was a great advice. But I also learned how to buy a bikini in case I ever need one. How not to buy a cassette for $20. That was way overpriced. And Yeah, so I think it was a great meeting today. Lots of learnings.
Well, we're glad you attended. We hope to see you again. As I close out the meeting, I just congratulate our, I need to see myself before I put this up. Make sure I'm getting it right. Is this showing properly to you guys or is it backwards? Is it
That's
showing
right.
good? Can you?
It looks
You
right,
can
yeah.
read that?
Yes.
We received the Talk Up Toastmasters. That means we had 5 new members during the time frame of February and March. Congratulations, Club Online Presenters, and to our Vice President of Membership, Elaine. And with that, we will close out the meeting. Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you next week. A few will stay online for a little bit, and from there, we'll just kind of chat informally. All right. For